Hey, and welcome back. This week's video I'll be talking about ambient occlusion. And so before I get into this, I've wanted to talk about how the AO map is used incorrectly a lot of the times online. And thankfully I don't have to do that because I found this video which goes into it and goes into a pretty great setup of how to go about using an ambient occlusion map within Blender. Please check it out when you can. Very quickly, to summarize how it works is you have an object that is lit by a light source, and within the area of shadow it reveals ambient occlusion. That refers to whatever details you have on that particular object. And the issue here arises between the object that you have with the material and the objects that may be around it. For solutions there, you're looking at screen space ambient occlusion, and very few games are doing that. Red Dead Redemption 2 is the only one that comes to mind right now, and that has artifacts in itself, but it is like a pretty great solution in my opinion. And I think there are very easy solutions, I think, to address the artifacts, which are a little more expensive, but I don't think they're they're going to cripple your machine in any way. This conversation then goes into normals and then BentNormals, and there's a really great example here that you can try out for yourself within Substance Painter. It should be obvious just what BentNormals add on top of normals. BentNormals, in my opinion, are a very superior technique to incorporate things like ambient occlusion in a material. It adds a lot of subtlety. It's pretty fantastic if you ask me. And it's another thing that not too many games are leaning into. I can't think of too many off the top of my mind. So then when you start thinking about this kind of thing, by the way, the Unreal Engine BentNormal solution stinks. It's not fantastic at all. I've seen better implementations of BentNormals. And I think that you could probably put something more exaggerated together in Unreal. But yeah, the off-the-shelf BentNormal solution in Unreal I don't really like, based on a solution I've worked with in the past. So the conversation then goes towards a comment that was made on my last video, and really the flat shading that came to mind. It was something I didn't realize at the time I played it when the game came out, and upon reviewing footage I thought it was quite striking. And so I'm just going to put this comment here from tjakal, and the comment reads, "The mystery AO you don't see during gameplay could be shader masks that are only applied to block out some parts of the shader, like ambient image-based lighting reflections, in areas that should be occluded, while otherwise allowing it to shade normally." I'm not going to get into semantics or anything here. I agree with that. They could be doing these things behind the scenes that aren't obvious. And the second part of that is, depending how the shader is written, it may take special masks and maps that only make sense with that particular setup. The first part of the statement kind of refers to what I've just talked about with ambient occlusion, and you should reveal it in shadowed areas of an object. I believe that's what it's referring to. And the second part of it, using special masks and maps, I don't quite agree with, and I hope this is like a constructive way to look at it. And I want to show you the footage that I'm looking at, and I would invite anyone else watching this video to also have a look at the footage and try to scrutinize it the way I am, because I've just gone through and the AO that they're using looks one-to-one like how it appears on the character model, and it actually stays like that throughout this entire combat scene. Moreover, you would think that whatever ambient occlusion solution Naughty Dog is using for their enemies would be visible. Like, you should be able to see it, because this whole combat scenario takes place within an ambient lit environment. So it should have ambient occlusion throughout. But again, they look flat. There really isn't any strong light source because of, I suspect, the way they go about baking their lights and then lighting their characters within this baked light environment. The point I'm getting at is, it's very odd and not worthwhile to have a shader that is complex enough to the point where you don't get any visual representation of the thing that you want in it. To me, that's a performance knock that isn't seen by anyone and should just be discarded. There should be a better solution. And again, I don't even think Naughty Dog is doing anything in that department. I don't think they're doing anything in the BentNormals space. I don't think they're doing anything clever with ambient occlusion maps. Look, I'm calling out the industry basically and saying I don't think many developers are using ambient occlusion properly. And yeah, I'm not sure why that is. I suspect that one approach to this lack of ambient occlusion on assets is one from the tools itself. So I suspect that because people bake assets in Painter, they typically use this one setting of bake AO by mesh name, which sort of confines the AO to the single objects within a character, for example. You then have ambient occlusion that is not seen throughout the model, which is incorrect to me. And so to illustrate this point, I thought I could just go through and do a version of this with Ellie and show you what I believe Naughty Dog should have used to represent Ellie in that game. This is that example. And what I'm doing here is I'm just going to switch it to like a diffuse. And you can see as I'm rotating the light here, the ambient occlusion revealing as the light source spins. And you can just compare it with the source Ellie model here on the right here. And it should be noticeable. Once you have this kind of thing, it brings up those things of like, okay, this is an animated object. We want to reduce an AO artifact here. And please ignore the artifacts I have here. I didn't want to clean up the mesh in any way. This, to me, is the starting point of AOs on assets. And it goes back to that thing that I said in my last video of the industry is not really leaning into this thing, and I think that's a big waste. And I hope other developers see this and maybe their workflow changes a little bit. And I hope I didn't offend you, tjakal, in your comment. I was really just trying to make this constructive, and the comment kind of spoke to a thing that I was thinking about anyway, so I wanted to take the opportunity. Thank you so much. I'll be going back to models in my next video. I hope you enjoyed this one. Thank you.